The FBI is now investigating the police killing of Andrew Brown Jr. in North Carolina. This story lacks any transparency really, because in past stories, we were able to look at surveillance, look at body cam footage. In this case, the police department is refusing to release or make publicly available body camera footage. According to the Browns family, the video that they were able to view though, shows that the 42-year-old was shot in the back of the head as he had his hands on the steering wheel. Now, that is what his family is saying. Obviously, we are unable to corroborate that. We're unable to look at the footage ourselves. But the family was unable to look at the entirety of the footage or what happened in context. They claim that they were only allowed to see 20 seconds of what happened. So Brown was shot 5 times in all, according to CNBC, including 4 times in his right arm. And that's according to an autopsy conducted at the request of his family. Brown was killed by sheriff's deputies in Elizabeth City, this is in North Carolina, during an attempt to serve drug-related search and arrest warrants. 7 of the deputies involved in the arrest were placed on paid leave. And I do think it's important to hear from the family's lawyer on this issue. I really do wish that we had more details and were able to see some of the evidence that they were able to see. But let's hear what the lawyer has to say about this case.
We do not feel that we got transparency. We only saw a snippet of the video. Why is it that they get to choose what's the pertinent parts of the video to show the family?
He was in his driveway with his hands on his steering wheel, and they were shooting at him while he was just sitting there. And then as he tried to leave and go backwards, trying not to hit them, they were still shooting at him.
He got executed.
Yeah.
It ain't right. It ain't right at all.
The longer that there is no transparency or accountability, the public gets anxious.
And the lack of transparency is particularly unacceptable when you consider the fact that we're talking about individuals who are supposed to be public servants. As police officers who are paid with our tax dollars, the community deserves to know what happens. They deserve transparency. And that is not what his family has gotten. That is certainly not what the community has received. And the family's lawyers did release a copy of the death certificate. And this is important. It lists the cause of death as penetrating gunshot wound to the head. The certificate, signed by a paramedic services instructor who serves as a local medical examiner, describes the death as a homicide. John, there have been so many of these police stories lately. I mean, there have always been many of these stories, but it's really been, overwhelming over the last few weeks. We got a little bit of justice, specifically in the Derek Chauvin case, but immediately following that, we heard about more and more police killings because there are 3 of them every day.
Yeah, when I got the rundown from you, I had to go through all of it just to make sure that I was thinking about the right case.
Right.
Because obviously there were a couple on Thursday and Friday. So quickly the memory starts to fade because it's immediately replaced by others. So you have Andrew Brown. You had, I believe there was a man named Mario in Alameda, I think it was, who had multiple police officers sit on his back, his neck, and he died. And I just read today about an individual who had his kids in the car and they fired at the car. So he rushed to open the door to see if the kids were okay and they shot him to death. I mean, like every single day you hear 2 to 3 of the worst thing you've ever heard. So I don't know, you start to try to draw lessons out of it. So if you sit in your car without doing anything, they'll kill you. I'm sure you can fill in the names of individuals where that's happened. If you sit, they might drag you out and then kill you on the ground. If you try to draw away, they're definitely gonna kill you. Multiple individuals have been killed trying to drive away in the last couple of days. And if they fire into the car and you try to check to see if your family has been needlessly murdered, they will kill you, thus inflicting the same trauma on the rest of your family. So this is a complete, the fact that they're hiding so much information, as you're gonna go over, they're gonna allow people to see a bit more of the footage in like a week and a half.
10 days.
Load up the body cams. What is taking so long? What do you need that time for?
Exactly. Yeah.
Anyone watching this, can you come up with a good, reasonable explanation for why they need that time, but the family doesn't deserve to see it now? I can't.
Well, there is a judge involved in this case. So the judge is arguing that there is a good reason for withholding the tape from the public. Judge Jeffrey Foster said he is not releasing the video out of concern it could hamper the ongoing investigation and threaten the safety of those in the footage. Is that what happened with the, George Floyd video? Did that hamper the investigation of that case?
Maybe the investigation they wanted to have, sure. What do you mean it's gonna threaten the safety? They're already saying they're gonna blur all the faces.
That's
Does
right.
it take you a week and a half to blur the faces because you blurred the faces in the first 20-second clip almost instantaneously? We've got editors, Mary, Cassie, they could do it. And Alex could blur that out in Premiere in a few minutes. None of this makes any sense. And that's not a cop, that's a judge. So you're perhaps slightly more inclined to believe that there might be something there. But then you remember the relationship between the lawyers, between the cops, between the judges. They know each other and trust each other far more than they would trust us peasants. They get gunned down. The whole thing is so disgusting, so dirty, and coming so soon after a cop finally facing some consequences. It's as if they want to remind you, nope, nothing has changed. I know that you were already hesitant as the charges against Chauvin were being read, but maybe you had like a little glimmer of hope that something would change. Nothing's gonna change. More people are gonna die, and they're gonna be just as protected by the system as they were before.
And that's why I agree with the less optimistic commentary and analysis that followed Derek Chauvin's conviction, murder conviction. Because while you might be able to argue that there was justice in one isolated case, clearly that didn't change the systemic issues with policing. And while there is obviously an emphasis on the racial component to this, because we see case after case, video after video of unarmed Black people getting shot and killed. This is something that affects every single one of us. How many stories have we done at this point of elderly people who have been abused by cops? The woman in Loveland, Colorado, who has dementia, 75-year-old woman who has dementia, forgets to pay for less than $14 worth of merchandise at Walmart and gets beaten by cops, who gets her shoulder dislocated. And as they're watching the body camera footage at the station, they're making light of it. They're proud of themselves. There is a problem with the culture. There's a problem with the type of people that policing often attracts into their force. Yes, there's a problem with training, but I think that that is not the end all be all. I don't think that that's the main issue here. When you look at, take a step back, all right? For anyone who wants to argue that there are good cops, I hear what you're saying. There are good cops. There are cops that don't carry out extrajudicial murders and killings on a daily basis. Got it. I agree with you on that. But where are they right now? They stick up for the bad cops, or they just remain silent. And if any of them do speak out, what happens to them? There's retaliation. That shows that there is a systemic issue, there's a cultural issue within policing. And we have to accept that in order to make society better. You just have to accept that.
Yeah.
So it's just, yeah. Anyway, let's just move on. It's just so depressing. It's frustrating. And just put yourself in the shoes of this family. Family member is gunned down by cops. You want answers and you're not getting them. You're not even allowed to see what happened. And the thing, I know I keep bringing up how our tax dollars fund the police, but it's important to really think about that. Put it in context. The family, through their taxes, is paying for the cops to brutalize them and in some cases murder family members. It's insane, absolutely insane.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.